Hey, everybody. Once again, we have John Woodford with us and Brian Thomas, both veteran journalists involved in the media for decades now. And tonight's topic is the release of Jussie Smollett shortly after being sent off to jail after being convicted in the case of a phony hate crime hoax. So, from what I could gather, I'm not a lawyer, but this could be done, being released while his appeal is pending, but it's rather unusual. So, guys, what do you think? Anybody can jump in here.
Well, I think, it's given the oddities of this case so far, what would surprise you about any of this? I mean, the whole thing is bizarre. So I would think that, he still has to atone for what he did on appeal. He still has to pay back a lot of money that the Chicago Police Department wasted with this specious claim. And, I think that, if he's just doing this to try to resurrect his career, and that's certainly what it smells like, then, I don't know how successful that's going to be either.
Well, if he wins the appeal, I don't know if he has to pay restitution.
Well, I think they're two separate issues. The appeal is on the criminal charges. The other is a civil matter. So I don't think they're linked.
No, but what I mean is, if he's found not guilty after all from the appeal, then why should he pay damages? Because then the Chicago Police Department was engaged in a legitimate investigation, and you don't pay for a legitimate investigation.
Well, the thing is that there's so much of this that's already decided in terms of the court of public opinion. I would be surprised if his case got reversed on appeal. I just don't see that happening.
John?
Well, I don't know. This is a case where the farce is playing into his hands in a way. I mean, he said he was attacked in a racist and homophobic attack, right? So now probably they're going to try to make it look as if he is punished, it's a racist and homophobic attack against him by the establishment. Of those who were sort of trying to make him some kind of little folk hero of some sort. So to put him in jail is a sign that you're not woke. And rather than be condemned for that, who knows who running for office might be afraid that this kind of hysteria is going to make them look bad. Oh, we're persecuting poor Jussie Smollett. We don't want to be seen as racist and homophobic. We just have to let him walk.
Yeah, there was somebody who already compared the incarceration of Jussie with the Emmett Till murder.
Yeah. I mean, really, yeah. It's the lynching of Jussie Smollett. It'll soon be an HBO series, of the lynching of Jussie Smollett, and there it will be.
Well, there's nothing to prevent him from writing books and going on the lecture circuit if anyone wants to pay him. I mean, this is not necessarily a career ender. Look at
not at all.
But it could be a career ender in terms of his being an actor. Other than
I don't know.
But you never know. I mean, this is crazy.
Actors, there's a broad, for actors being goofy, people quite a wide range of tolerance.
Yeah,
he could star himself in the ballad of Jussie Smollett or the persecution. Of Smollett.
I mean, who was that goofy rap guy who was raping women and drugging them? He had a whole series on TV devoted Bobby something or Billy something.
I know who you mean.
Yeah,
he did that interview with Gayle King and freaked out in the middle of it. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So when it gets to this level, we're really in a kind of new territory. I don't know the rules on releasing someone. I imagine they said he's not a threat to go someplace.
Yeah, it's true.
But I don't know when you release people when they're appealing.
Well, he can go out of state. I read that. He can go to California, to Hollywood, and start banging on doors. You know, I don't know if he can leave the country. I didn't read that far into the story, but he can leave the state.
He can leave the state.
So,
Yeah, the two main criteria, I guess, are that not a flight risk, although he could leave the state, and also that it wasn't a violent crime. So that was grounds.
Right. Yeah.
And also, his lawyer was saying, well, because the appeal will take longer than the sentence, therefore he should be released in the meantime. I mean, that by that logic, there's people who've been wasting away in jail for years and years pending their appeal.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And,
People wasting in jail haven't even been charged.
Yeah, and who's to say that this appeal will be completed before his 150 days is up?
yeah, it could take years. They did
Oh,
for years.
yeah, time served. Yeah. There's a whole rigging of this kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Well, I wish the worst for him myself. I don't have any sympathy for him whatsoever.
I mean, yeah, it's amazing how people are still on board with him, that he's the one who's the victim. He's the one.
Yeah.
And I guess his story is that it never happened the way they said that it happened, that somehow the people who were the Nigerians who were his personal trainers, they're the ones that set it up and victimized him.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but he had no knowledge that they were going to do that.
Yeah, right.
Right. You know, fake news. He can claim that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
Well, it'll all be justified. They're saying, well, you have to look at the motive. They were trying to damage Trump supporters' reputations.
Yeah.
So all is forgiven.
Yeah.
In a worthy cause.
The intentions were good.
That's right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And anyone who disagrees with that is a pro-Trump, Russian-loving traitor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the way the news is going.
Yeah.
And Brian, before you joined us today, we're talking about that. You know how the news now has become so propagandized for one side or the other, and both sides are guilty of it. It's not the type of news operations that we are familiar with at the beginning of our careers.
Oh, no. I think there's clearly a bottom line factor here that is driving all of this. And that is, CNN and MSNBC took a look at the revenue that Fox was enjoying from all that right-wing tripe and said, hey, look, we're not going to let them outstrip us with all that money without fighting back. So the way to fight back was to do the opposite. And that's a lot of what's happened. We talked about this before. I think it's a dangerous time for journalism. And I don't know who's going to say enough is enough, if anyone.
I don't think anyone, I think it's far beyond that point now. It's too useful politically for one side or the other. So it's not going to stop. And with social media now also being controlled more and more, where do you go for actual facts?
Very few places, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, that's the danger. I mean, the First Amendment was there for a reason. Don't forget, Thomas Jefferson, who pushed for it, hated the newspapers of his day. He said that they were full of lies.
That's right.
And he was a victim of some of those lies. And yet he said, in balance, one newspaper will balance out another newspaper. The more information, opinions, better for the general public to be informed. And this is a guy who was under a political attack during his days at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. They used to print, they could make up all sorts of stuff back in those days.
Oh, yeah. And by the time it got promulgated from one state to another, it was often weeks, by the time the word spread. And then what do you do to try to counter it? We don't have the instant retort that we have now. So, by the time...
other hand, the public, I believe, the public knows, people know that a lot of stuff is being made up. Mm-hmm. So once they are in that mood, it becomes a form of entertainment. And in a way, it loses a lot of its bite and toothlessness. People are just using it as a way to have fun, mocking you know, the establishment. So I would rather, that's why the censorship we have now bugs me more. Because as far as I'm concerned, let anyone say anything, anywhere. I don't give it, you know, if there's someone says something you don't like, well, make up something else back. Be inventive, be creative. You can make something against them. And after a while, it all begins to slip off. You know, everyone becomes Teflon plated. But when you have these people censoring stuff,
Yeah.
and they're deciding which scurrilous stories can be out there and which ones can't, that's a bad situation. And that's what we're in now with Facebook and these other people.
Right.
And I see these arguments in the New York Times with these op-ed people saying it's all right to turn, let them be the guardians.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they'll get this, some black woman cultural critic will say it's not censorship, it's curation. They're acting as curators.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't
Sure.
call them censors. And then they all say, "Oh, you know, she's so brilliant." Yes, we just call it curate. There are curators, and then
Well-
they swallow it. They put that crap out there.
Well, the thing that Larry and I have talked about, and I don't know whether you were a part to that conversation or not, but I'll repeat it for the sake of saying it. You can't choose to do a story without making some sort of editorial decision about whether it's news.
Yeah.
You start with a position of saying, all right, here's a story that I think is newsworthy, or my editors think is newsworthy. You start with a subjective opinion right off the bat. Then it becomes imperative for you to make sure that what you do with that subjective decision to do the story is done in the fairest manner possible. And that's where we've diverged, you know, greatly here. And I don't know that, you know, one or two people are going to be able to fix it.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, yellow journalism is nothing new.
No.
Oh, no.
But now, you know, it's 24/7. It's, you know, it's on the internet, it's on TV, it's on radio, it's in magazines, what few there are left. And, you know, there's no escaping it. And, you know, I guess the influence is now much more pervasive because the media has expanded in so many different platforms. So again, it's, yeah, I mean, how do you find the facts? It's been, even if you Google stuff today, some of the facts may still exist on the internet if they haven't taken them down, but with the algorithms they're using now, they bury it. So you have to search pages and pages and pages before you may get to the story that gives you a contrary opinion. It used to be easy to find opposing opinions before, but now they're buried way down, if not taken down altogether.
The sad part about it is I just saw a story about a source for getting news, and people are getting their news online almost to the 50% level in this country. And that's scary because there's so much disinformation out there.
Yeah.
And they're taking it as gospel, just as if a seasoned fair reporter would have done a story on it and say, well, it's just the same, you know, it's okay, it's out there. People would complain if it weren't right. Well, some people do complain. It's just that they don't get the appropriate venue to lodge that complaint. So, you know, just because it's out there doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah, I entirely agree with you, Brian. But on the opposite end, you can't turn to mainstream media and necessarily get the real story. So that's the dilemma. So people more and more are turning away from mainstream media, going to the internet, where there's all kinds of nutcase stuff on there mixed in with some credible sources, and most people can't distinguish the two.
Well, you know, in fairness to the mainstream media, until Fox News came along with the right-wing tripe, you know, there wasn't this rush to do stories just because the competition was doing them. And that I think was the poison that got into the cauldron there somewhere. And now it's very hard to take the poison out. And that's one of the things I find wrong with this whole thing with competing news views left and right is that you wind up with poison on both sides, and nobody's got a real readout as to where the poison came from or where it's coming from now.
Well, you say in fairness to mainstream media, which to me sounds like you're justifying them going down the same path that Fox started on.
Well, I'm not justifying it. I'm saying it was a financial decision more than anything else. You know, anybody who thinks that the lofty goals of the First Amendment are still, guiding, ethereally from above is crazy. This is a business. It's always been a business, and it's more so now a competitive business because there's so many advertising dollars out there or owners of news organizations to compete for. So I don't think it's immoral for people who don't share Fox's opinion to try to make themselves viable. There's no coming back from the slippery slope easily, is what I'm saying. That's all.
Did you say it's not immoral for them to follow Fox's path?
I'm not saying it's immoral. I'm just saying it's a business decision.
Yeah, but
I don't think that journalism. I think journalism of those in the practitioner level, it's not it's also a calling and a craft.
Used to be.
Yeah, and still is for a lot of people. And that's one reason we see flourishing online so many of these so-called counter narratives. People want to understand the world, political and other aspects of the world. And some people want to not just understand it, but then describe it or give accounts of it to their fellow citizens. And that's a role they want to play. And of course, there's business stuff involved, but they're not in it. They're not in the ownership part of it a lot of the times. Now, of course, to make money on this internet stuff, I don't know how they do it, but they have to ask for contributions. But that's the way it was with print media way back in the day. People would start newspapers, some for political party interests, some because they wanted to go against an established church or whatever it was, against royalty. I mean, they were in there. People have been in it to try to explain the world to people. So that's an honorable calling, I think.
But John,
I think so too. Yeah, I think that's true. But somehow this has been co-opted, and
well, yeah, but it's going to cause. But at least for people, if it's co-opted, then people are going to go try to do it another way. People are going to try to.
That's right.
I mean, whether there's pirate radio or maybe people start running off sheets in the back rooms the way they did over in Soviet Union with the samizdat and so forth. I mean, people want to get the counter information out there, and the authorities try to plug it up. It'll make people seek ever more imaginative and creative ways, even if they have to risk their lives or freedom to do it, but they do it.
John, I agree with you that some people, the ideal is still considered a calling and still try to purvey what they think is the real information, the state of the world. However, the problem is that's calling is now for some people, more of them, the young people, drifting into social justice warriorship, where even in journalism schools now, that's being taught as a legitimate way of pursuing journalism, that what you do is you become an advocate, and if the facts have to be shaped to fit your predetermined conclusion, that's okay in the interest of social justice. So therefore, objectivity is no longer the primary goal.
Well, I would hope that
if someone on the other side, though, at least then has a chance to come out against you. I mean, what's wrong now is that among some, they want to keep another side from even getting onto the platform.
That's correct.
Yeah, especially with social media platforms, the main ones now, suppressing anything that doesn't go with their narrative. Facebook is a prime example, and those other social media platforms. I mean, Zuckerberg could arguably be defined as perhaps the most powerful man in the world in terms of controlling information and shaping events because of that.
Yeah. And in the beginning, he was saying that he wasn't going to censor.
Yeah.
And he got so lambasted for that, as if it was irresponsible for him to say that they shouldn't have to fact check and approve of all the stuff that was out there.
Well, I think he was naive to think that there wouldn't be people who would
But
take advantage of that system.
unfortunately, he caved.
That's right. So, I think he found out the hard way that
Well, they're going to
that
pull
statement
Yeah.
statement was not tenable. It
Well,
just
they're
wasn't
threatening
there.
his business.
Yeah, that's right.
Really, they sort of said you're either going to join up with the whatever you want to call it, the big state people control, authoritarian control, and accept the responsibility to be part of this establishment, or we're going to get you.
Exactly. I think that was part of the veiled threat, to either go along with the censorship or we can enact measures legislatively.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I wanted to raise here? Remember Chris Matthews left MSNBC unceremoniously one night.
Yeah.
Just said, this is it for me, I'm leaving, and somebody else took over the rest of the show. That followed by less than 2 weeks, his close to a rant about the neocons. And that's the first time I ever heard Chris Matthews go into a diatribe about the threat of the neocons and what they did, and the connection to 9/11 and the Iraq War and all the other allegations that were made about their involvement in overseas activities. And 2 weeks later, he was gone. I don't know if they were related, but it sure was fishy to me.
Well, I don't think he was that influential. I mean, I'm glad he did it, but I don't think the people had to worry about Chris Matthews being able to stop their climb to power.
But he was,
Oh, no.
he was breaking ranks there, So
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it didn't help him. Let's put it that way. It didn't help his career.
Now, on the other side of the coin, look at what's his name, Oberman, who's now calling for the arrest of people who are not going along with the narrative on a number.
Right. Yeah, something happened to him. Of course, I've wondered about his mental state in the past, but this thing that he's doing now, maybe he's desperate to climb back in. He's saying, let me back in to be a nightly spokesman. What can I do for you?
Tell them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
See, I mean, again, I've said this before. We're approaching state media here, state-controlled media, as they had in Germany, as they had in the Soviet Union and other dictatorships. I mean, I don't think we're that drastically different anymore. It's more subtle. It's not quite as much in your face. You don't realize that you're being manipulated, but it's there, and increasingly so. So where is this headed?
Yeah.
And where does it become a true authoritarian operation? That's the big fear right there.
I mean, once you control information to the general public, you've got them. Because nobody can have a contrary opinion. They're controlling even thought now, even with the way they're controlling language or changing language. That in itself. Thought.
Yeah. Absurd things. To say that someone is they can't say someone's a slave.
Yeah.
The slave for come on.
Yeah.
These distinctions that are semantically meaningless, but they just become little verbal rituals.
Yeah, like that slave thing.
Or Latinx. Come on. The Latinos don't. I have never met any regular
pejorative
Nazi Latino. I was going to say Latinx. You say I'm a Latinx. Come on, people don't talk like that.
Well, in Congress now, they've changed the language too, where they have to refer to what used to be known as mothers as birthing persons.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be a woman giving birth anymore.
Is that
According,
true? Is that a joke?
no, they've actually changed official. I don't think they're sticking
Yeah.
to it, but it's
Birthing persons?
birthing person instead of mother. Yeah.
No,
So that, that,
it's enough already,
God.
I mean, and look what's going on now with Leah Thompson, the champion swimmer out of Penn State,
Oh,
sweeping all the championships in women's sports. I mean, 10 years ago, you would have thought this was so absurd,
mm-hmm.
never be
Mhm.
allowed. You allow a transgender man, he's still a man,
Yeah. Yeah.
play in women's sports. And what about the women who are trying to compete, practicing since high school, and that they're being wiped out by this guy who
Yeah.
claims to be a woman, and it's allowed.
Right.
I
And
mean,
if you say anything against it, there's something wrong with you.
you're a bigot.
That's what-
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you see, this is what I mean about how this is now becoming. It's like double think. George
It is.
Orwell's
It is.
1984. Black becomes white, white becomes black.
Yeah.
And you end up believing it because everybody tells you that's the way it is. I mean, so how many people now are actually accepting transgender men in women's sports? I mean, the officials are endorsing it. Nobody's complaining about it, except some of the women speaking out have been shut out now on these contests. But I mean,
Yeah.
they're controlling even thought with this stuff now, that a transgender man is actually a woman by claiming that he's a woman.
Yeah.
That kind of mental absurdity would have been laughed at
Yeah.
recently. So, I mean, these are profound changes of perception and thinking in our society.
Are.
Well, Goebbels could have made a mint with this gang, I'll tell you.
Yeah. I mean, look at what he was doing back then during Hitler's regime with the limited media resources of the day.
He had papers and film. That was it.
No, radio.
And the radio.
That radio. He said that radio was
Yeah, and
something they
but
needed.
he didn't have TV, and he didn't have the instant
That radio.
gratification that you have now.
Yeah. Now, boy.
Now, if you had Goebbels around now without any check and balance, God help us. It's
Well, they're taking off the checks and balances.
yeah,
Really,
that's right. It's
can't have a check.
we hope we only hope that this will not get any worse. But I don't know.
I don't see it turning around, Brian. Do you or John see any way that it could actually be turned around?
Well,
No.
I don't know.
Someone high up and influential would have to come out against it and almost in some political form say these other people have been lying to you. So it'd have to be someone even who was able to. So you can only imagine it could happen after a disaster of some sort. That's the problem.
That's right.
Horrendous event.
No one is going to take that first step and
They don't want to take
and
the
survive it.
Yeah.
They'll call him a kook and a nut and a screwball, and you can see that coming. That's easy.
Be quiet, Kitty.
We're like dinosaurs now in terms of how we started off in journalism and what it's become. And some of these kids that they have on the air are speaking with authority. And you can tell, they have no knowledge of what they're talking about, except talking points that were provided to them.
Yeah.
Some of the ignorance is astounding.
Yeah.
By these people on the air that are influencing millions of listeners, millions of viewers.
What's in Putin? You have a whole story. What's in Putin's mind?
Yeah.
What is Putin? And is Putin like Hitler, or is he like Stalin, or is he like an ogre or the devil, or And then you get news things that are about that level, and yet to try to ask people, do you really think that there's a reason? Why would NATO need to go east and get into this kind of situation that you can't talk about? Yeah, you can't examine even the historical events that led up to this in any rational kind of way that I can see. Very few people do. And then the ones that do, like there's the ex-military guys like Basevich, he's very good. And there are a couple others, ex-military, they used to be able to get on at least MSNBC. Now they can't even get on MSNBC. MSNBC is completely, worthless. CNN is almost completely worthless too. Might as well just go straight to Fox.
The only ex-military figure I've seen on the air is a colonel named Doug McGregor, who's contradicting all the narrative about Ukraine and Putin and all that. He's been
Where does he come on?
Tucker Carlson has had him on several times, and also Gerald Salenti has had him on. But other than that, he's nowhere to be found. And I'm surprised that Tucker Carlson is being allowed to say what he's doing, because he's not on board with the rest of Fox News. And Fox News, despite their right-wing slants, are right on board with the narrative of all the other stations, MSNBC, CNN, Ukraine, and Putin.
Yeah.
Well,
What was his first name?
Doug McGregor.
Doug McGregor?
Yeah.
Doug McGregor.
Matter of fact, I tried to get an interview with him myself, but he's all booked up, and I could see why. He's the only one that's giving a contrary perspective, and I think an accurate one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unless anybody has anything to add, I think we can wrap it up for now.
It's important for this type of exchange to occur, even on this lower level, in terms of notoriety. I mean, we're doing it on a website, and people will look at it. Do we have the exposure of a major network? Of course not. We know that, but that doesn't mean that what we do here is less important than what they do at a much higher level. Any discourse is better than none.
Yeah. I mean, the cure for misinformation is more information and a discerning public. And that's another problem now. Kids aren't being taught civics or history in schools anymore. They don't know anything about the proper functioning of government. They don't know anything about the 10 amendments to the Constitution.
They don't teach civics in high school anymore either.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem there.
You see some of these polls where they'll ask people the substantial meanings of the Bill of Rights and whether they think it's good or not, and 75% will say it sounds like bad ideas.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Well, I've always contended the American electorate is colossally stupid. And if you go through history and you look at some of the things that have happened at the ballot box, you would be hard pressed to disagree with that.
Yeah. They never should have taken regular civics instruction out.
Yeah.
Schools. It's a necessary thing. You'd think any sane society would want to have people learning the civics.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
I wonder how they did that. How that happened. I wonder how that happened.
I think part of it was the move towards criticizing U.S. policy, and along with that, they attached that to basic concepts like the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
Yes, that's so stupid.
And they're denationalizing.
Yeah. Then there's the dumbing down of teacher education.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in school, almost all of our teachers, and this was in a small town, very small town, but still all the teachers had degrees in their subject matter, at least, and not in education as a subject matter. But after a while, you could major in something called education.
Yeah.
And not even have a solid academic mastery of any subject. Yeah. And then you're teaching it.
They say this goes way back. Every generation criticizes the new generation as being, just not up to par and this and that, which is true. That happens. But I think in this case, there's more reason to feel that way.
And more fearful of
being that way.
That's right.
I mean, how many kids aren't reading? They don't read newspapers.
No,
they don't look at news. They don't even. Very few of them. They might have a pet interest of it could be whatever it is, the environment for some of them. But in the main, they don't look at much of anything. I mean,
I go into homes now of people that I know no newspapers, no books, no magazines, just TV and the internet, their iPads and all that. I mean, so
And they think that's adequate,
it's we're supposed to be the most advanced and most educated nation in the world, and look at the dumbing down of the population. I mean, while our kids are screwing around with video games and all that, in China they're learning all the skills by which they will overtake the West, and they're rapidly doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're studying their math and sciences and
Step by step, slowly I crept,
Yeah, and well, that's a topic for another segment where, who's the real enemy, China or Russia?
Yeah.
China. So.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys, that's it for
all right.
today.
Okay.
Thank you very
Alrighty.
much for
See ya.
contributing your 2 cents along with mine, and for John
Okay.
Woodford, and for Brian Thomas and myself, Larry Sperano. Thanks for being with us.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye.